Hello and welcome back to the Friday MLB DFS slate breakdown for August 11th. We are back. We got a 13-game slate. A lot of fun. On today's show, we're going to go over yesterday's 4-game slate, then get into pitchers ownership today, and followed lastly by the stacks to consider, and some stack ownership with that as well. But before we get into it, make sure to come join us at LineStar. It is only $29.99 per month. It gets you access to everything we do, all of the props, all of the DFS tools, projections, optimizers, all of the content. Gives you everything at one low price that is cheaper than everything else in the industry by a good bit here. So you should come join us, get involved in our community, get involved in chat. I think that is one of the very underrated things about our chat is it's really cool. Everybody's nice, everybody is willing to help and talk strategy, talk DFS. I think people do learn just by reading chat day in and day out of what people are doing or trying to do and whatnot. So come get involved. We want to have you here. It is cheap. Let's go. Let's get into the projections. So first, we're going to go over to the winning lineups. Perfect lineups on all the slates. And shout out to Bulletproof with this call yesterday. Once again, in chat, he came out with, he's going with 20% Matthew Liberatore. And Liberatore crushed 34.8% at 5,700. Literally could have won you a slate, no matter what zero says. Could have won you a slate, the pitcher. Next, we got James Paxton, who didn't even have that good of a game, but it was just good enough for yesterday's slate where pitching was a bit rough. So next we got the Philly three-man stack and then some one-offs for that. So nice perfect lineup here. Almost used all the salary on a small slate. And the winning lineup went to Josh Engelman for $50K. He had Nola and then Liberatore, who just crushed and was a total slate breaker. Then he had a Philadelphia stack, a Cardinal stack. It was a 5-2-1, which we have seen that be a very, very profitable lineup construction so far this year. So congrats to Josh. You got it done. You got $50K more. Now let's get over to the FanDuel lineup here. So FanDuel perfect lineup. No surprise. Liberatore, who crushed. 2-man Cardinals stack here. 3-man Philly. And then a couple one-offs with Muncy and Vargas here. And the winning lineup over on FanDuel, Kicks Guy 42 has 20K more reasons to buy some more kicks. And he went with Paxton. Liberatore was extremely low owned on FanDuel. And because of that, the winner still didn't even have to have him. Now, Philadelphia was a lot more high owned. On FanDuel, he had a 3-man Philly stack, a 2-man Dodger, and 2-man Boston to kind of get it done here. So nice lineup construction there. I like what he did there. He had some nice correlation. Way to go, Kicks Guy. Congrats. Now, let's get into the slate. All right, so highest owned pitcher is Lance Lynn today, 42%. Look, he's just too cheap on DraftKings. 8,900 with his type of upside is really good, and he's been pitching really well for the Dodgers so far. Yeah, he faced Oakland, it's Oakland, whatever, but 24 fantasy points. I would take that. Take it against the Padres as well. Did that once again. And then on, his projection today, 19K at 8,900, 2.2 value. It's real nice. Colorado's striking out a lot. So I am very interested here. The one thing I do have to say is that he is a very inconsistent pitcher. We haven't seen those down games yet in LA, but we know they're coming from his history. Does it happen today? Maybe. maybe not. Rockies aren't great, but Lance Lynn does give up some hard contact and some fly balls. And Colorado does have some guys with power. So I would not be surprised if a ball or two flies out of the park here. It just matters if there's guys on base or not. Regardless, I do think there's going to be a lot of strikeouts here. Now, enough to offset those runs, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see with that one. But I totally get if you want to fade him. And typically, I do fade pitchers like this when they get this high owned. I think he's in for a very good game. So don't get me wrong there. And I will have some of him. But I'm going to have plenty of lineups without him as well. I can see you going either way here. Justin Verlander, 9,400. Now, this is probably the guy I'm fading as far as the higher owned guys. I can absolutely see you going here, but we have him at 1.8x value, and I think there's just a lot of other guys around that are lower owned that we can just pivot to. So I'm going to probably do that. But Verlander is better at home. He is used to this Houston stadium. Angels striking out 24%. Verlander has been very good. So I totally get if you want to go here. I can see both sides of this. Do with that information what you will. Next, we got Luis Castillo. Castillo, a little bit better of value as far as our LineStar projection here. I am interested. He has been very good lately, or very good this season. He has solid K upside. Combined K rate of 28%. So I like all of that. It is versus a very good Baltimore offense, though, who does hit righties hard. But he is averaging 28% more fantasy points at home. So he is very interesting, and I do like him. Will I have some? Maybe a little bit. I just don't love him, and he is a little higher owned than I would like versus a good offense. Christopher Sanchez is currently the expected pitcher, but nothing has been formally announced to Major League Baseball yet. Everybody is just expecting that Sanchez is the pitcher. And, he has a little bit of K upside, and Minnesota strikes out a lot. So at his price, I get why people are going there, and I could have a little bit. There is, however, somebody that I like more that is a little bit cheaper is my value option that I like the most today. Next, we got Corbin Burnes. Look, I think Burnes has been pitching insane. He has some major K upside. So you got to like all of that. And the White Sox aren't great versus righties. But he's 11.2K. We have him at 1.8x value. It's real hard for me to pay up all the way to 11.2K for a guy that has a 26% K rate over his last 20 starts. So with that, I'm probably not going there. I think there's other pitchers I would like, but I don't mind if you go there, and I totally understand why you want. And I think ownership is right to be able to take some chances on him, without just being a fish playing him. All right, so next we got Blake Snell. I wish Snell was slightly cheaper here as well, but he's not, and he's been just pitching insane for 2 months now. So Arizona is not very good versus lefties. They don't strike out much, but they don't hit the ball very well. 2.97 WOBA, 1.22 ISO. Those are both very low. And Snell has pitched super good versus Arizona in his past. 74 plate attempts, only hitting 116 off him and a 38% K rate. So Snell is absolutely in consideration. One thing is he is not as good away. 24% less fantasy points away. But I do think Snell is a little bit interesting. LineStar does too. 2.1x value at 22 fantasy points. 5-star alert score here. So there are some definite things to like here about Snell. Ovideo is, he looks decent. I understand taking some chances here. The one thing I want to point out is 26.7% combined K rate at 7K is very interesting. This Reds offense is good, but they strike out a lot versus righties, so there might be a little hidden upside here at only 7K. Kyle Gibson quietly has been pitching really well lately. 2.99 FIP, 22% K rate over his last 5, 3.5 FIP over his last 20. He's been decent. Seattle Mariners strike out a lot, 24% versus righties. So I see a little value in Gibson. at 23.7% combined K rate at 7,700. Now let's skip over to Andrew Abbott. I'm interested in Abbott today. First of all, Pittsburgh is terrible versus lefties, striking out 26%, under a 300 WOBA. 0.105 ISO versus lefties. Frankly, they just don't hit lefties. So it is very interesting. Abbott has shown real high K upside in some of these games. He has some real nice ceiling that we've seen. And if he can get to that at low ownership, you're looking real good. 2.2x value, 21 fantasy points. I think he is very interesting and a nice low-end option. I also like, as a low-end value option, Johan Adon. So this is the guy I was talking to when we talked about Christopher Sanchez. I think Adon is super interesting today. Oakland striking out 26%, under a 300 WOBA. Meanwhile, Adon over his last 5 starts, 26% K rate, 3.84 FIP. I think he's decent, and his StatCast data from that last start looked really good. A lot of ground balls, not many fly balls, very little hard contact. It was versus Cincinnati, which is a good offense. So I'm very intrigued for Adon, where, solid value option. Nobody's going there. You can, have another pay up option and still be able to pay up for bats. I think he is very interesting. I don't love Morton on DK. Understand if you want to go there. Kopech is another one where Kopech has some high highs, but he also has some real lows. So I think you could play each side of Kopech there. Now let's get over to FanDuel. All right, FanDuel, Lance Lynn, highest owned pitcher, no surprise. Now he is more expensive on FanDuel at 9,900, so it does make me a little more wary about him. Like I said on DraftKings, I like him. Don't get me wrong. Am I going to have some? Yes. Will I have 40%? Probably not. I'll probably keep it to 25-ish% on FanDuel for Lynn. I like him. I don't mind him. But I think 40% ownership is just getting a little wild here. I don't love Castillo. Understand if you want to go there on FanDuel. At 10.5K, I'm likely not going to Verlander. Morton, 8.5 on FanDuel, 6% owned. I think this is very interesting. We know Morton has some upside, 25% K rate, 3.9 FIP. When he's on, he is very good. There is some hitting weather in New York, but I can see a path where Morton does good. And at 8.5K, it's interesting to me. Sanchez, I think he's a little too expensive on FanDuel, so I'm likely not going there. Abbott, very interested in him on FanDuel, as I am on DK. 7,500 for Kopech is another, cheap option that is interesting. Like I said, this is a high variant spot. I think you can stack Milwaukee. I think you can roll with Kopech. I don't mind either in this situation. Kopech has been terrible lately, but when he's on, he has real high highs. And so that is the one thing that does intrigue me. Just understand it's risky. If you play him, don't play a ton. Don't have it be 50% of your lineups type thing. Outside of him, back to Adon. 5,500 is too cheap for this guy. We have him at a 5.5x value. 30% projection or 30-point projection at that price is real nice. I'm intrigued on Adon on FanDuel as well, and I don't generally say that about that cheap of a pitcher. And I think Blake Snell is probably a little too expensive on FD, but he is intriguing. And obviously Corbin Burnes is a little bit intriguing too. I would have Corbin Burnes over Castillo in my personal rankings, and I would probably have Blake Snell over Castillo and Verlander as well. So I think those two pay up options are definitely intriguing on the slate. Now let's get into some good old stack attacks. So 13 game slate. Ownership's going to be spread out a little bit, but ownership is big time on this St. Louis versus KC game. It is, likely the best hitting environment depending, or with the pitchers considered and weather and all of that. So that is interesting. So highest owned guys, once it clicks over there, KC, as we talked about. Look, 70% ownership on a 13-game slate is a lot of ownership. Now, they're probably worried about, worth it. Witt has been good. Some of the Royals guys have some nice, hitting or speed combos. Wainwright has been really bad, been letting people on base and paying the price for it, again and again so far this season. I feel terrible for Wainwright. He's on 199 wins, and he just can't get over that hump to 200. I don't know if today is going to be it, but hey, it could be. On the other side, the Cardinals look like they're in a good spot too, so it could be a situation where he gives up 5 runs, but he gets the win. All right, and next highest owned, we got a little bit of Cardinals, a little bit of Oakland. I don't love Oakland today, as I talked about. I like Adon, and 60% owned is just too high for me for an Oakland offense, so not going there. All right, highest projected, as we saw when the screen came on, it was Houston, and Houston is in an okay spot. Detmers hasn't been great lately, but he is a good pitcher, so I'm not totally in love with this spot, but I totally get it if you want to go there. This Astros offense is good, and they've been hitting well lately, and Detmers hasn't been good lately, so it's interesting. Dodgers versus Gomber, I think, is very interesting. Gomber gives up some real hard contact to lefties, and Dodgers have a lot of lefties. He is a lefty himself, so he also gives up hard contact to righties. He's just not a great pitcher, and the Dodgers are very interesting to me. Braves versus Tyler McGill. We talked a little bit about it being some okay hitting weather in New York, and it is. McGill is just kind of an okay pitcher. Meanwhile, the Braves barrel the ball a ton. So I think going there is very interesting. They are a very expensive stack, though. So with that, you're going to have to pay down at pitcher. Dodgers are interesting. Cardinals are very interesting. It's likely a bullpen game for KC, and their bullpen isn't that good. So Cardinals make a lot of sense, and they're less owned than the Royals. And frankly, it's a better offense. So I think Cardinals are absolutely in play. So now let's go to the value side. We're probably going to see some Royals here. See some Oakland. All right, Minnesota. Minnesota is very interesting. Look, it is Christopher Sanchez. Apparently, it has been officially confirmed here. So, FIP of 5 over his last 5. 4.27 over his last 20. He's not a great pitcher. And Minnesota has some cheap guys that can hit, so it makes some sense there. Obviously, Royals are in play. If Milwaukee is in play, we went over that. I think you can play both sides of that game. I don't love Pittsburgh, but I do have to say that Abbott does give up some hard contact and gives up a lot of fly balls. So very well could be a few home runs given up by Abbott. And then that bullpen is just okay. So makes sense to have a little bit of Pittsburgh as well. Ceiling-wise, it's probably going to be Astros, be Dodgers. Cubs we haven't talked about. Barrios has been really good this year, so not a guy I love to pick on. However, we have seen that he can get got, and when he does, it usually is a lot of runs. So don't mind going to the Cubbies a little bit here. Obviously, Braves, Houston, we've talked about as well, are all very interesting. Now, because it's a big slate, let's pull up this teams filter. So Cardinals, highest implied runs, 5.8. KC is getting more ownership, only 5.2 implied runs. So I think that's interesting that just based on this, you should go Cardinals over the Royals. Now, does that really play out that way? Who knows? But just Vegas is saying Cardinals over the Royals. Braves right there at 5.2. Philly right there at 5.2. Dallas Ketchel is back from what we've seen, over the last few years. He's lost it. Maybe he figured something out in the minors again, but Philly is definitely an interesting stack. Don't love Boston, but Skubal probably doesn't go that deep into the game. I think Dodgers are interesting. Padres are definitely interesting versus Nelson. Toronto is always a little bit in play. And Cincinnati is a little interesting there. So that will kind of do it for us today. You guys have a great weekend. Good luck on your lineups today. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe to our videos. Helps us out a ton. We'll see you next week. Adios, guys. Bye.